Well, I think maybe this is the season when our thoughts turn toward life and death, about matters that really matter. And when I look around, after the worst of the pandemic, hopefully, after I've lost family and friends for one reason or another, that my thoughts and memories turn to those no longer with us. See, I think that when someone we love dies, we do try to remember, the last time we ever saw her, or that last time maybe on his birthday or Christmas when we all came together, maybe ate together. When we were all together in that special way that folks who love each other are at times like that. We remember them. And then as time goes by and Christmas or that birthday comes around again, that person who since died is apt to be very much on our minds then. We may not actually speak their name for fear of seeming, sentimental or of upsetting the others or maybe upsetting ourselves. But that doesn't matter much because the air rings loud, of course, with that name we don't mention. And in a real sense, she or he is with us there, that absent one. They may be there like a real presence, maybe like a benediction, or maybe even as a reproach, or maybe as all these at once. Now, you may be asking yourself what this has to do with why we are here this evening as we celebrate Maundy Thursday. But I think maybe you have to start with something like this in your own life if you really want to grasp why it is that in all of its long history, the Christian faith has made so much of the Last Supper, which is what I want to talk about tonight. See, John's gospel ends with the mandate that you love one another as I have loved you. And of course, the whole setting for that mandate was the Last Supper with Jesus' disciples. So let's look. Because to begin with, it was the Last Supper. I mean, they never all ate together again. And in a sense, they never even saw Jesus again, at least not really like that. Because within a few hours of their eating, all hell broke loose, to put it quite literally. See, later, after supper, after it was night and there were, soldiers and there was the fear of their own deaths as well as his, and I imagine his disciples were scared stiff. And so it seems unlikely that from that night till the crucifixion, they saw anything very clearly except their own terror, or heard anything very clearly except the pounding of their own hearts. So that supper was virtually the last time they saw him like that. And they had good reason to know that it was likely the last, even that night. I mean, certainly Jesus knew it, and he didn't have to be omniscient to know it either. Anybody with eyes in his head could see that the Romans and the Jews alike were out to get him. He'd attacked the Jews' most sacred tradition, their law, and he was also a threat to what the Romans held most sacred, which was, ironically, peace in the empire, the Pax Romana. So he'd had every reason to know that his death was now upon him. Oh, I guess he could have avoided it easily enough. Presumably, all he had to do was hightail it out of town and lay low for a while. But he chose to stay and die because he was sure, in the end, this was the will of God. See, I think Jesus believed he had to die, that his death was essential to save the world from the vice of evil that was slowly strangling him. And so Jesus spoke of his death this way. And as he spoke, he performed a symbolic act. Okay, so at the Last Supper, taking up the loaf of bread, breaking it in his hands and saying, "This is my body, which is broken for you. In other words, I die willingly for your sake, just as I break this bread now for your sake." And then he spoke of the cup of wine as the blood that he would spill for them. Afterwards, he invited his friends, including Judas, by the way, invited his friends to eat and drink this food. And see, with this invitation, he expands and shifts the symbol by inviting them to share in his very life, to take his life into themselves, to live out in their own lives both the suffering and the joy of it. Do this in memory of me. In a book titled The Shape of the Liturgy, and I've talked about this before, Dom Gregory Dix, who wrote this classic, asks this question: was there ever another command so obeyed? For century after century, spreading slowly to every continent and to every country and among every race on earth, this action has been done in every conceivable human circumstance, for every conceivable human need, from infancy and before it, to extreme old age and after it, from the pinnacles of earthly greatness to the refuge of fugitives in the caves and dens of the earth. He says, men have found no better thing than this to do for kings at their crowning, or for criminals going to the scaffold, for armies in triumph, or for a bride and groom in a little country church, for the wisdom of a mighty nation during wartime, or for a sick old woman afraid to die. And we could add our own reasons, couldn't we? For the refugees who have managed to escape Ukraine, in thanksgiving that my sister didn't die last year, for the strength to get through another round of treatment, in celebration of our anniversary, or for the birth of our first child. Dix finishes this passage by saying, you could fill many pages with the reasons why we have done this, and not tell 100th part of it. And best of all, week by week and month by month, on 100,000 successive Sundays, faithfully, unfailingly, across all the parishes of Christendom, the pastors have done this, just to make the holy, common people of God. And so I tell you now, there is nothing in earth or heaven, nothing more important for you and me to do than this. We eat this meal together, and we meet at the level of our most basic humanness, which means our need, not just for food, but for each other. We need each other to fill up our emptiness, just as we need God to fill up the emptiness that's still left over. This communal meal binds us and maybe allows us to be most human and makes us brothers and sisters in the end. So finally, as a friend said, the next time you walk down the street, take a good look at every face you pass. And in your mind say, Christ died for you. My friend said, that girl, that bum, that phony, that saint, that crook, Christ died for you. Take and eat in remembrance that Christ died for you.